Hey everybody, welcome back to Shannon Around the House. Question for you guys. Do you guys ever go to the grocery store and randomly see a bunch of meat on sale and you decide to make an impulse buy and buy a bunch and then you get it home and you don't know what to do with it? Does that happen to you guys? Because it happens to me. So it actually happened the other day and there was a buy one, get one free on chuck roast. So I brought these home and then I was like, what am I going to do with these? So I decided I'm going to make a very bare bones beef stew. This is going to be really actually very simple to make, and we're just using a couple ingredients and it's going to taste really good. So that's what I'm making today. Like I said, very simple. We'll do it step by step so you can follow along. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is get our chuck roast all trimmed up. So if you're unfamiliar with working with this particular cut, this is a great cut for stew meat. It breaks down really nicely as it braises over time. You'll notice that there's a lot of intramuscular fat right here, all these little like white stripes. That's good. That's kind of what you're looking for. But all of this big like white chunks and stuff here, this is either extra fat or like this right here, this is connective tissue. So that all has to be cut away. So I'm going to cut everything here, get it trimmed up into about 1-inch pieces. So after I do that, we'll move on to the next thing. All right, we got all of our chuck roast trimmed up here. This looks really good. So that trimming up your meat is probably the hardest part of this whole dish that we're doing. So if you can do that, then it's going to be smooth sailing. So now we can go ahead and season this. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of salt here, some fresh black pepper. Just kind of toss this with my hands here and get everything coated. Just kind of like that. That looks good. Whoops. And then we're going to use about 2 tablespoons of flour just to kind of coat the meat here. The flour is going to help all of this brown up in our Dutch oven. So we're going to brown the meat next, just to give it a little sear on the outside, and then we'll take it off the heat, and then we'll move on to the next step. So this looks good. This is all nice and coated like that. I'll go ahead and get my Dutch oven going over on the stove. Okay, so I have my 4-quart Dutch oven going here over medium-high heat. I have about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there, and we're just going to go ahead and add in our chuck roast here. Just kind of like that. And I'm just going to let this brown up. This should take maybe, I don't know, 4 minutes or so. And so every couple minutes, I'll just come through, kind of give this a little bit of a stir and make sure everything is kind of nice and browned up. Okay, all of our beef has browned up nicely. And you don't want to cook this all the way through. You just want to give it a little bit of a sear. You can tell right there. So go ahead and take a slotted spoon and just scoop all this back out into our bowl here. And we'll add this back in a few minutes. Okay, that looks good. We'll set that aside. You can see there's kind of some brown bits down there. That's good. Those will come up here in a few minutes. So now I'm going to add half of a chopped onion. I feel like most people have just a random onion hanging out at home. So this is half of a chopped yellow onion. And we'll just kind of sweat this a little bit, meaning we're just going to let it cook down for maybe another 3 minutes or so, just till it softens up a little bit. Okay, our onions have cooked down a bit. Now we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste in there and kind of stir that around a little bit. Kind of like that. Then we'll add another 2 tablespoons of flour. This flour is going to act as our thickener for our stew. So I'll let this cook down for about a minute, and then we'll go ahead and add some liquid to our stew here. Okay, that's cooked down for a minute. Now we can add 1 cup of just regular beef broth. We'll just give this a good stir, and we'll let this kind of bubble up for a second here. Okay, our beef stock is bubbling, so now we can add 1 cup of red wine. And if you don't have this, just go ahead and add 2 cups of beef stock instead. That's no problem. So we'll let this come up to a boil, and then we'll go ahead and put our beef in. Okay, our pot is boiling here, so now we can go ahead and add back in our chuck roast here. That looks good. Now we can turn our heat down to low. And we're going to let this go uncovered for about 45 minutes. So we'll see you guys in about 45 minutes. Okay, we're back. It's been 45 minutes. You can see our stew is bubbling away nicely here. A lot of the liquid has kind of steamed off and evaporated here. So we're getting a really nice thick stew. This looks good. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir here. And this still has to cook for a bit longer. I'm actually going to add a few carrots to this. Obviously, a lot of people will add vegetables to their stew. If you don't happen to have any on hand, that's totally fine. You don't have to add any if you don't have them. So I have like 2 small carrots that I've just chopped up. I'll just add those to our stew here. Kind of let these cook down. So this looks good. Like I said, it needs to go for a bit longer. I'm actually going to cover it this time. So keep this on low heat and let this go for another 45 minutes, and then it should be ready to go. So we'll see you guys in about another 45. Okay, so it's been about another 45 minutes here. I'll go ahead and take the lid off and show this to you guys. And I've already taste tested, and everything tastes great. So our carrots are nice and fork tender. Our beef is nice and tender. This looks really good. So I'll go ahead and put this in a little bowl and show you guys what this looks like. And this is going to be great. So super easy to make, guys. Didn't take really too many ingredients at all, and pretty simple to do step by step. So I'll get this in a bowl and show you what it looks like. Okay, here it is all plated up. I put a little bit of fresh parsley on the top there just for a little bit of color. But like I said, this is really easy to make, especially if you've never really made a homemade beef stew before. I just used a random piece of chuck roast that was an impulse buy at the store, and I just kind of made do with the ingredients that I had in my fridge and in my pantry. So didn't really take a whole lot of planning, and I tried to do this step by step for you guys so you could kind of follow along as I went. I think we'll just serve this with some garlic bread for dinner. I think that's kind of all it really needs, so we can kind of dunk that in our stew. But I have made a couple other different types of beef stew. I'll put the videos for those at the end of this video if you want to check them out. So, like I said, pretty easy to do, especially if you're kind of new to making beef stew. This would be a good recipe to try out. So, enjoy, and we will see you guys next time.